What I am about to share with you today has the power to profoundly transform the way you understand life, the universe, and the invisible forces that influence your consciousness. And this is not superstition or sensationalism. We are talking about advanced spirituality, vibrational science, and ancient knowledge preserved by traditions that, for centuries, tried to warn humanity about the forces operating behind the scenes of reality. Now imagine if I told you that there exists a subtle intelligence described millennia ago in Gnostic texts and referenced indirectly even in religious scriptures that grows stronger each time human consciousness weakens. A force that feeds on fear, distraction, emotional turbulence, and spiritual disconnection. These entities, known as ARCHONS, appear to be intensifying their influence at this very moment. And more. What if I revealed that, without realizing it, you may be contributing to their growth simply through the thoughts you nurture, the emotions you hold on to, and the content you give your attention to every single day? In this video, I will explain, through historical, symbolic, and spiritual perspectives, who the ARCHONS are, why their influence is expanding right now, and how you can protect your mind and energy to reclaim your inner sovereignty. I will present practical examples, clear analogies, and ancient references demonstrating that this knowledge is far from new. It has merely been concealed or misinterpreted throughout history. If this topic feels too profound, stay with me until the end. You will understand that there is a reason you are hearing this now. And perhaps it is the missing key to explain why so many people today feel drained, confused, or emotionally overwhelmed. There are moments in human history when something invisible seems to stir behind the veil of reality. Moments when chaos, mental confusion, and a collective sense of losing direction become almost universal. And according to ancient traditions, especially the Gnostic ones, this is never accidental. These teachings, preserved quietly for centuries, claim that when human consciousness enters a fragile state, certain forces that have always existed in the shadows become more active, more intense, and more hungry. These forces are known as ARCHONS. What I want to offer you today is not a conspiracy theory, nor a narrative designed to instill fear. What I want to offer is clarity. Clarity about an idea that has existed for thousands of years. The idea that subtle intelligences, not necessarily beings in a physical sense, but fields, structures, and patterns, influence the human mind whenever we disconnect from our spiritual sovereignty. And to understand why so many people today feel emotionally pressured and mentally exhausted, we must revisit these teachings with honesty, historical accuracy, and spiritual depth. In the Gnostic texts, discovered in Nag Hammadi in 1945, the ARCHONS are described as rulers of the material world, entities connected to the demiurge, whose function is to keep humanity trapped in ignorance, distraction, and fear. Historically, this is symbolic, not scientific. But when viewed through modern psychology, neuroscience, and quantum physics, the symbolism gains a new dimension. The ARCHONS can be understood as repetitive thought patterns, dense emotional fields, dysfunctional societal systems, or even low-frequency vibrational structures that feed on our attention. And one thing modern science confirms is this: whatever receives attention grows. Neuroscience calls it neural reinforcement. Physics calls it the observer effect. Spirituality calls it energy follows focus. The Gnostics called it feeding the ARCHONS. This is why this video is so relevant today. Because never in human history have we been so exposed to stimuli that drain our mental and emotional energy. Negative news, social conflicts, endless information, constant comparison, non-stop distractions. All of this creates the perfect environment for these forces, symbolic or literal, to grow stronger. But here is the good news. The very act of understanding what is happening already weakens these structures. Consciousness is the key that opens every door, So I invite you to stay with me until the end, because in this video, we will build a profound, practical, and liberating understanding of who the Archons are, why their influence is intensifying right now, and how you can reclaim your energy and your inner sovereignty. If you're ready to take this step, type today's mantra in the comments. I choose the highest timeline. And if this knowledge resonates with you, remember to like and subscribe. It doesn't just support the channel, it helps expand collective awareness and raise the vibration of humanity. To truly understand why the Archons appear to be growing in influence at this moment in history, we must first understand what they are, not only from a spiritual perspective, but also symbolically, psychologically, and vibrationally. The word Archon comes from the Greek archon, meaning ruler, authority, or one who governs. But in the ancient Gnostic texts, the term takes on a much deeper significance. The Archons are portrayed as forces that administer the material world, keeping human consciousness trapped in patterns of limitation, fear, and ignorance of its own divine nature. It is important to be transparent. Historically, the Archons are not described identically across all Gnostic schools. Some traditions portray them as semi-conscious entities, others as automatic systems, and others still as internal psychic structures. The consensus, however, is that they are not demons in the popular sense, nor evil extraterrestrials, as some modern interpretations suggest, but rather intermediary forces, aligned with the demiurge, a symbolic figure representing limitation, materiality, and the illusion of separation. Here is where things get fascinating. Although these descriptions are ancient, many of them converge with concepts studied today in psychology, neuroscience, and even quantum physics. When the Gnostics said that the Archons distort human perception, this echoes what modern psychology calls cognitive bias, automatic negative thoughts, and inherited mental models. When they said the Archons keep humanity distracted, this aligns with modern understanding of dopamine, digital overstimulation, and attention hijacking, mechanisms that literally capture human consciousness. In contemporary spirituality, many interpret the Archons as low-frequency vibrational fields feeding on dense emotions such as guilt, fear, shame, resentment, anxiety, and despair. This resonates with the modern spiritual idea that emotions are frequencies and that certain frequencies sustain specific realities. When humanity enters dense emotional states, individually or collectively, it feeds structures that behave exactly as the Archons were described. There is also a crucial symbolic interpretation. The Archons represent the layers of unconsciousness within the human mind, the aspects that distance us from clarity, presence, and our ability to perceive reality as it truly is. They are, in a sense, the internal hackers that keep us looping through emotional and behavioral repetitions. For this reason, discussing Archons means discussing both outer forces and inner structures, because, in truth, both interact deeply. With this understanding, we begin to see that the question is not whether one believes in Archons as literal beings. The true question is, what within me grows when I lose my awareness? What within me feeds on dense emotion? This is the essence of the Gnostic teaching and the starting point of liberation. When we speak about the Archons, we are not dealing with a modern concept invented to explain contemporary chaos. We are entering a spiritual tradition that predates many organized religions, a tradition that remained hidden, not because it was meant to be secret, but because it was silenced. The Gnostic view of the universe was considered dangerous to the power structures of the time, which explains why so many of their writings were burned, banned, or reinterpreted. Only in 1945, with the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library in Egypt, did a significant portion of this knowledge return to the world. The texts found there, including the Hypostasis of the Archons, the Gospel of Thomas, and the Apocryphon of John, describe a universe where the material world is not the center of existence, but an intermediary layer, a kind of limited domain governed by forces the Gnostics called ARCHONS. It is important to be transparent. Historically, these texts are real documents from the 2nd to 4th centuries, but their interpretation is symbolic, spiritual, and philosophical, not literal. In these narratives, the chief archon is the demiurge, a figure who is not the supreme god, but an imperfect creator disconnected from the original source. Believing himself to be the only creator, driven not by evil, but by ignorance and arrogance, he generates a distorted creation where humans are born without remembering their divine origin. The lesser archons would then be extensions of this unconscious field, responsible for keeping humanity trapped in illusion, distraction, fear, and repetitive emotional cycles. Here the story becomes even more fascinating. In many early Christian traditions, archons appear subtly under other names: principalities, powers, rulers of this world, spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. The idea that invisible forces influence the world is not exclusive to Gnosticism. It appears across cultures. Zoroastrianism speaks of forces that trap the soul in the material realm. Hinduism describes Maya, the illusion that diverts the mind. Buddhism speaks of the kleshas, which imprison consciousness. All these traditions, each in its own language, point to the same phenomenon. Human consciousness can be manipulated by forces that feed on spiritual disconnection. Returning to Gnosticism, we find that the archons do not have absolute power. They operate only where human consciousness is asleep, where there is fear, ignorance, or forgetfulness of one's divine nature. And this is why, for the Gnostics, the true spiritual path was not worship or fear, but awakening, remembering who we are, where we come from, and what we carry within us. This is the core of the tradition. Human awakening dissolves the power of the archons. They are not defeated by force, but by consciousness. When we move from the historical plane to the functional one, we begin to understand the archons not merely as figures from ancient texts, but as operative forces, patterns that manifest within human experience. Whether interpreted as subtle entities, vibrational fields, or psychic structures, all Gnostic traditions converge on one point. The archons act by manipulating perception. They do not need to control the external world. They only need to influence how you interpret it. And once your perception changes, your entire reality follows. This aligns remarkably well with modern psychology. We now know that much of human experience is shaped by cognitive filters. The brain interprets the world through memories, traumas, conditioning, beliefs, and expectations. Two individuals can face the exact same situation and experience completely different realities, because the reality that truly matters is the reality perceived. And it is precisely on this perceptual interface that the archons symbolically operate. Gnostic texts describe these forces as responsible for sowing confusion, illusion, anguish, and distraction. Translating this into contemporary terms, we can understand these forces as mental patterns that hijack focus, emotional triggers that distort clarity, and automatic impulses that separate a person from their spiritual autonomy. Think of those moments when you know exactly what you need to do, but sudden thoughts arise telling you the opposite. It won't work. You're not capable. You don't deserve this. It's dangerous to be yourself. These thoughts appear out of nowhere, like internal interference, and can shape the entire trajectory of a life. In many esoteric traditions, the archons are also linked to emotional hyperarousal, especially fear. Modern science explains why. When the brain enters stress states, the amygdala takes over, reducing conscious decision-making. It's as though access to the highest levels of consciousness, where clarity, wisdom, and intuition reside, is temporarily shut off. If the archons symbolically represent the loss of that inner sovereignty, then the connection between spiritual tradition and modern science becomes clear. There is yet another key point. The archons are often described as forces operating within systems. This idea aligns with the contemporary understanding that social, cultural, and technological structures can indeed influence our collective mental state. Information overload, the pace of modern life, social pressure to perform, and constant comparison create an environment where human consciousness grows increasingly vulnerable. One does not need to believe in literal entities to acknowledge that forces, psychological, media-driven, emotional, are pushing humanity toward distraction and disconnection. All of this leads to a simple yet profound conclusion. The archons, whether seen symbolically or as subtle intelligences, represent everything that diverts consciousness from its natural clarity, everything that confuses, distorts, and imprisons perception, everything that prevents human beings from remembering their own depth. And this is precisely why understanding how these forces operate is essential for reclaiming autonomy, clarity, and inner direction. When we look at the global landscape today, it becomes clear that humanity is going through a period of intense emotional, mental, and spiritual instability. We live in an era marked by repeated crises, social polarization, information overload, and a speed of stimuli unlike anything in history. This creates fertile ground for forces like those symbolized by the archons to expand. If we understand the archons as patterns that feed on fear, distraction, and fragmented consciousness, then it makes sense that this era would be described as a time in which they grow rapidly. The first reason for this growth is hyperexposure to fear. Never before have we been confronted with so many negative events, conflicts, tragedies, and stimuli that activate threat responses. Neuroscience explains that the human brain was not designed to process such intense emotional input. This keeps the nervous system in constant alertness, weakening mental clarity and emotional stability. And according to many spiritual systems, when the human mind is fragmented, it becomes more vulnerable to symbolic forces that reinforce that disconnection. The second reason is attention fragmentation, a phenomenon widely discussed in modern psychology. Constant switching between screens, notifications, tasks, and distractions creates a mental state with no depth or rest. This prevents us from accessing our inner wisdom, intuition, and sense of direction. In Gnostic traditions, this shallow consciousness is exactly what allows the archons to influence the human mind, keeping it away from introspection and awakening. The third reason is the collective emotional imbalance. Anxiety, social comparison, financial insecurity, and cultural conflict generate a heavy emotional field that spreads quickly. In many modern spiritual traditions, dense emotions are described as energetic nourishment for structures that behave precisely like the archons. They expand when humanity vibrates in fear and shrink when humanity vibrates in clarity and awareness. The fourth reason is widespread spiritual disconnection. Modern life pulls people away from introspection, contemplation, and spiritual grounding. Even those on the awakening path struggle to maintain consistent practices, as the environment constantly pulls them back into distraction. This creates what the Gnostics would call an ideal field for the archons, a mental and emotional space where humans are physically present but internally disconnected. And there is a fifth factor, the technological amplification of human emotion. Social networks and digital platforms intensify precisely the emotional states that keep people reactive, polarized, and divided. This creates reality bubbles, conflicting narratives, and a storm of emotional energy that, symbolically speaking, nourishes structures that thrive in disharmony. When all these factors combine, It is not surprising that ancient traditions say the archons grow in times like these. Humanity is living a moment of great vulnerability, but also of immense potential. For where there is great shadow, there is also great opportunity for awakening. To understand why so many people today feel drained, confused, and emotionally unstable, we must view the human mind not just as a biological organ, but as an energetic, psychological, and vibrational field that responds to internal and external stimuli. The mind is both a receiver and a transmitter. It absorbs, interprets, and creates patterns, and this very dynamism is what makes it vulnerable, especially when we do not fully understand how it works. From a psychological standpoint, the mind tends to repeat familiar patterns, even destructive ones, because they offer a sense of predictability. The brain seeks energy efficiency. It prefers automated loops to new neural pathways. When we are tired, stressed, or emotionally overloaded, this tendency increases dramatically. And it is precisely in these moments of diminished clarity that symbolic archonic patterns find an opening, moments when we slip into autopilot. Chronic stress continuously activates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, keeping the body in a state of alert. When this happens, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for clarity, conscious choice, and higher reasoning, reduces its activity. It's as if our conscious awareness dims, allowing internal interferences, destructive patterns, dense emotions, obsessive thoughts to take over. Seen through a spiritual lens, it resembles a temporary reduction in consciousness, creating space for internal forces that limit our sovereignty. Neuroscientists also explain that attention functions as an energetic spotlight. Whatever you focus on, you strengthen. This mirrors ancient spiritual teachings that describe attention as a form of vibrational nourishment. If attention is fragmented, anxious, or trapped in low-frequency content, the mind tends to collapse realities that mirror those states. Dense patterns grow not because they are inherently powerful, but because they are consistently reinforced. Emotional frequency plays a crucial role as well. Emotions such as fear, anger, shame, or resentment produce specific neurochemical states that alter perception. When someone remains in such emotions for extended periods, their vibration drops and their internal reality becomes more permeable to narratives of scarcity, insecurity, and hopelessness. One does not need to believe in external entities to observe this effect. It is evident in everyday life. Conversely, when the mind is calm, centered, and coherent, something extensively studied by neuroscience and the HeartMath Institute, it becomes far less vulnerable. A state of heart-brain coherence increases synchronization between the nervous system, emotions, and cognition. This amplifies perception, strengthens intuition, and restores conscious decision-making. In this state, archonic patterns simply cannot anchor themselves. By understanding the mind as a vibrational and neurological field, we see that vulnerability is not mystical nor inevitable. It is a state that can be transformed, and this transformation begins with reclaiming focus, breath, clarity, and present moment awareness. If we understand the archons as forces that distort perception, drain emotional energy, and disconnect humans from inner clarity, then it becomes essential to recognize how this influence appears in everyday life. Many people imagine that spiritual interference, symbolic or literal, manifests dramatically. In truth, archonic influence is subtle. It infiltrates emotions, habits, self-image, and our reactions to the world. One of the most common signs is energetic exhaustion without a clear cause. This is not physical fatigue from overwork, but that persistent sense of depletion, as if something is quietly draining emotional strength. Some people wake up tired. Others feel drained after specific interactions, environments, or content. Psychologically, This can be due to overstimulation, chronic anxiety, or information fatigue. Spiritually, it suggests that vital energy is being siphoned into dense patterns. A second sign is the presence of intrusive thoughts that do not match who you truly are. Self-defeating, catastrophic, or pessimistic ideas appear suddenly, without origin. Psychology describes this as rumination or cognitive distortion. Gnosticism frames it as archonic whispers, patterns that destabilize inner alignment and plant doubt. Another strong indicator is the inability to maintain focus on spiritual or consciousness-elevating practices. When someone tries to meditate, pray, reflect, or calm the mind, distractions arise immediately. Scientifically, this may be dopamine dependency caused by overstimulation. Symbolically, it shows that dense patterns resist the expansion of consciousness because they lose strength when clarity increases. There is also the repetition of emotional or behavioral cycles, even when the person consciously wants to change. Toxic relationships, recurring conflicts, old fears resurfacing, or constant self-sabotage signal the presence of deeper structures at work. Psychology calls these implicit memories or conditioning. Spiritual interpretations see them as archonic patterns maintaining the person in a dense timeline. Another sign is deep disconnection, as though the person is physically present but spiritually distant. Lack of purpose, apathy, confusion about the future, and emotional numbness reflect an inner dimming. Neuroscience explains these states through neurotransmitter imbalance, but symbolically, they represent an obscured inner light. Finally, a very telling sign is compulsive attraction to negative content, destructive news, conflict, drama, or emotional chaos. This reinforces fear-based circuits and lowers inner frequency. When a person feels pulled toward such stimuli, it suggests alignment with patterns that thrive in low vibration. Recognizing these signs is not about fear, it is about empowerment. Seeing the mechanism breaks the spell. Awareness is the first step toward reclaiming your energy and your reality. To deepen our understanding of how archonic-like patterns operate in human experience, we must look beyond psychology and into the realm of quantum physics, not as an attempt to turn spirituality into science, but as a way to see how both fields offer converging metaphors for human consciousness. When interpreted responsibly, quantum physics provides powerful imagery for understanding how consciousness shapes reality and why certain vibrational states seem to attract either dense or liberating patterns. One of the most well-known principles is the observer effect, which shows that subatomic reality does not become defined until it is observed. Before observation, multiple possibilities coexist. After observation, one of them collapses into form. Although this phenomenon refers to particles, many contemporary thinkers use this metaphor to explain internal processes. What we focus on tends to become the dominant reality we experience. Connecting this with Gnostic wisdom reveals an interesting parallel. In ancient tradition, the ARCHONS had no power over the divine essence of the human being, only over the way a person perceived their existence. They operated precisely in the realm where perception assigns energy, names, defines, and solidifies a line of reality. Thus, whatever you observe, reinforce, fear, or emotionally feed tends to manifest more strongly. Neuroscience and cognitive psychology confirm this understanding. Repeated thoughts strengthen neural circuits. Strong emotions reinforce specific pathways. Recurrent behaviors shape the brain's filtering system. The quantum metaphor finds its biological counterpart here. Our internal focus collapses psychological and behavioral realities. There is yet another layer, the vibrational one. Emotions, according to psychophysiology, alter the electromagnetic field of the human body. Elevated emotional states, gratitude, coherence, compassion, generate more organized patterns. Fear, anger, and anxiety generate chaotic ones. Through a spiritual lens, these vibrational states determine which layer of reality a person operates in. Different emotions tune into different experiential patterns. Here, the concept of archons becomes symbolic and functional. If these forces feed on density, then fear-based lines of reality naturally become the environments where such patterns thrive. Reality lines built on clarity, coherence, and presence become inhospitable to them. This perspective doesn't require belief in literal entities, only the recognition that human consciousness is profoundly creative and that its internal state directly influences the type of reality it collapses. Long periods in dense emotional states reinforce dense realities, which is precisely what Gnostic traditions mean when they describe feeding the archons. Thus, the quantum view does not replace spirituality but illuminates how it functions. Consciousness is not passive. It defines, directs, and chooses. And each vibrational choice determines which reality becomes solid. When we understand this deeply, we stop being victims of circumstances and become conscious co-creators of our experience. Understanding how the archons operate, whether interpreted as symbolic forces, vibrational fields, or psychic structures, is only the first step. What truly matters is reclaiming inner autonomy and breaking free from patterns that drain energy, distort perception, and fragment consciousness. Gnostic tradition has always been clear. The archons have no power over a fully awakened human being. They operate in the unconscious zone, where a person is absent, where they run on autopilot, or where they're driven by emotional impulses. Therefore, disconnecting from these forces means regaining command over one's own consciousness. The first step is cultivating presence and clarity. Presence is not an abstract idea, it is a physiological and neurological state. Deep breathing, slowing down, and grounding yourself in the body reduce threat responses and bring the nervous system into coherence. In this state, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for conscious decision-making, becomes active again. This is precisely the mechanism that prevents automatic patterns from dominating the mind. Presence, therefore, is both cognitive and spiritual protection. The second step is attention hygiene. If attention is a form of vibrational nourishment, then the way you direct it determines which patterns grow within you. Reducing exposure to negative content is not avoidance, it is discernment. The human mind was not built to intake global tragedies every day. Limiting news consumption, adjusting your digital environment, and consciously choosing what enters your mental field breaks the feedback loop that strengthens dense patterns. The third step is emotional regulation. Dense emotions are natural, but remaining trapped in them is not. Techniques like diaphragmatic breathing, grounding, intentional pauses, and contemplative practices recalibrate the nervous system and restore clarity. Spiritually, regulating emotions elevates frequency. Psychologically, it restores neurochemical balance. The effect is the same. Archonic patterns lose influence. The fourth step is reinforcing healthy internal narratives. Much of archonic influence manifests through repetitive thoughts that weaken self-esteem, confidence, and purpose. Cognitive psychology shows that replacing automatic thoughts with conscious narratives, even gradually, rewires neural pathways. This is neuroplasticity in action. When a person observes themselves with compassion and replaces self-sabotaging thoughts with aligned narratives, the internal environment becomes inhospitable to distorted thinking. The fifth step is cultivating coherence between body, mind, and spirit. This includes practices that support energetic vitality, such as meditation, mindful walking, prayer, contemplation, journaling, silence, or any form of inner reconnection. Coherence is not only emotional, but vibrational. In such states, the mind stops being fertile ground for dense patterns and moves into higher perceptual functioning. Finally, there is the practice of continuous choice. Disconnecting from archons is not a single event, but an ongoing discipline. It means choosing multiple times a day where your attention goes, how you respond to emotions, and which inner narrative you decide to strengthen. Over time, this reshapes the very structure of consciousness. After understanding the symbolic nature of the archons, their influence over human perception, and the psychological, emotional, and vibrational mechanisms that sustain them, it becomes essential to integrate this knowledge into a concrete practice. Theory opens the door. Practice creates transformation. This block is not an esoteric ritual nor a secret mystical method. It is a grounded synthesis of neuroscience, somatic psychology, and contemporary spirituality. The intention is simple: to restore your inner sovereignty, reorganizing the mental and emotional fields so dense patterns can no longer anchor themselves. Begin by finding a comfortable posture, seated or standing, with your spine upright. This is not merely symbolic. Posture affects breath, nervous system regulation, and your ability to focus. Close your eyes gently or keep a soft gaze. Bring awareness to your breath without trying to change it. Simply observe. This act alone begins restructuring neural activity. It reduces amygdala activation and engages the brain regions responsible for conscious control. Now inhale through the nose for 4 seconds, hold for 2, and exhale slowly for 6. This breathing pattern activates the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for calm and internal stability. Repeat for a few cycles, allowing your mind to slow down. Notice the small spaces that appear between thoughts. These brief silences are windows of access to higher awareness. In Gnostic tradition, these moments of presence were considered the clear space, where archonic influence loses strength. Next, place your attention at the center of your chest, not seeking a specific emotion, but simply acknowledging this point as a deeper locus of awareness. You may feel warmth, pressure, pulsation, or nothing at all. Every experience is valid. The purpose is to reconnect mind and body, perception and presence. Psychophysiology shows that focusing attention here increases heart-brain coherence, generating an internal state that is more organized and less vulnerable to distraction. Now visualize a subtle field around you. Not a perfect image, just a sense of expanded presence. This visualization is not imagination. It creates an internal map that reorganizes psychological and emotional boundaries. Spiritually, this is described as strengthening the energetic field. Scientifically, it resembles reinforcing internal models of healthy boundaries. Stay in this state of gentle expansion for a moment. If thoughts arise, let them come and go. The goal is not to suppress anything, but to ensure nothing governs your attention without permission. This is the opposite of the archonic mechanism. It is you stepping into the role of conscious observer, choosing what enters your mental space. Then open your eyes slowly or soften your gaze. Notice that something has shifted, perhaps subtly, but clearly, a sense of space, clarity, and presence. With repetition, this exercise interrupts the cycle of confusion, fear, and automatism, the very environment where archonic patterns thrive. Over time, this practice stops being a technique and becomes a natural quality of consciousness. As we integrate everything explored so far, it becomes evident that the discussion about archons has never truly been about external entities manipulating humanity, but about the inner mechanisms that shape human perception. They symbolize distortion, confusion, and fragmentation of consciousness whenever it becomes disconnected from itself. They represent the internal patterns that drain energy, cloud clarity, and disorganize emotional equilibrium. And they reflect the collective structures that keep people distracted, overstimulated, anxious, and disconnected from their deeper presence. When we observe what neuroscience calls automatic thought loops, what psychology identifies as cognitive bias and rumination, and what spiritual traditions describe as vibrational density, it becomes clear that these fields are describing the same phenomenon in different languages. The name changes, but the mechanism remains. When consciousness contracts, when presence diminishes, when attention scatters, forces, internal and external, find room to act. They thrive wherever self-awareness is weakened. Similarly, liberation also appears universally. Across traditions, the same key emerges: clarity. Clarity to recognize when a thought does not express your true essence. Clarity to see when an emotion is distorting your perception of yourself. Clarity to notice when your energy is leaking into unconscious habits or environments that reinforce dense states. Clarity does not erase the shadow, but it takes away its nourishment. Once this is understood deeply, the archonic dynamic weakens. It loses its most valuable resource, unawareness. From this point forward, it becomes possible to reorganize the mental field, stabilize emotional states, and direct energy toward what truly matters. Life ceases to be a chain of automatic reactions and becomes an expression of choice, presence, and discernment. This shift does not depend on supernatural belief, nor on literal interpretations. It depends solely on recognizing that attention is the most powerful structure of human experience. Wherever attention rests, reality takes shape. Wherever attention scatters, dense patterns find room. Wherever attention becomes illuminated, mechanisms of manipulation, internal or symbolic, cannot remain. Thus, the study of the archons becomes less about dark forces and more about a map of how to reclaim inner authority, focus, and sovereignty. It reveals that true freedom does not come from eliminating the complexity of the world, but from restoring the ability to perceive with clarity, feel with discernment, and live with presence. And when this presence stabilizes, everything that once seemed threatening loses the power to influence. Consciousness expands, the field reorganizes, and life realigns with its own intelligence. At this point, we finally recognize that nothing outside of us holds greater power than what we have not yet illuminated within ourselves.